Hey there, it's Steve from Serious Keto, and this is part one of my transformation story. But before we start, a couple of things to get out of the way. First off, I am not a healthcare professional. Anything that I say in this video or subsequent videos is simply me relaying my experiences and my experiments on myself. Also, there may be occasionally the somewhat informed opinion that I share. Now, I know when it comes to topics of diet and health and fitness, people tend to have very strong and diverse beliefs, and that's okay, so long as we're civil about it. So if you decide to leave a comment, and I encourage it, please let's be kind to one another. If you decide you want to be an a-hole down in the comment section, there's a good chance that I might just delete that comment and ban you from the channel. So keep that in mind. Lastly, this series might not occur exactly chronologically. It's going to be more grouped together by topic, so you may find that I'm jumping around from time period to time period over the last 50 years. Don't worry, I'll always put up a little title card or something like that so you know what I'm talking about and when I'm talking about it. One thing I think that is important for me to share is I'm just an ordinary guy. There's nothing especially special about me. I don't have a lot of willpower. I don't think I was blessed with especially great genes when it comes to losing weight and building muscle. I've been overweight or obese the majority of my adult life, and you'll see plenty of pictures of that throughout this series. I've also read a lot of self-help books over the years and found them not tremendously helpful because they weren't written by average people. They weren't written by people that shared my situation and my circumstances. When you made millions of dollars in the dot-com bubble, it's very easy for you to then take a bunch of time and dedicate it to cooking and fitness and things of that nature. And it's easy when you're well connected to say, oh, hey, you've got problems with low energy, just go to a doctor and get prescribed some testosterone. Or do you have problems focusing? Go to a doctor, get a prescription for some Adderall. I don't have that luxury. So the things that I have done to change my life are things that a normal, average, middle-class person like myself has access to. Another thing that I've noticed in some of the diet books that I've purchased, as well as some of the YouTube videos that I've seen from certain folks, they share their transformation story, but they've got one picture of them when they were fat. And that makes me wonder, how long were they fat? Was this just a bulking period and then, they snapped out of it and started eating again? Or what? I'll be showing you lots of pictures of me, so you know that I have been fat for a while. And I wasn't some former college athlete that put on some pounds and then rediscovered the weight room and got back in shape. The reason I'm really hammering this home is because I want you to know that I am just an average guy. Hopefully then you'll see some parallels in my experiences in my life that you can say, oh wow, that happened to me too. Maybe I can do what Steve did, and I can maybe be an inspiration to you. That's my hope. It seems like a lot of great stories, these success stories like rags to riches or turning around your health or things like that, start with a rock bottom sort of story. Just had a heart attack or diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, or my spouse left me and my kids hate me and I lost my house and all of this stuff. And I don't have a rock bottom story. In fact, I kind of wish that I did. Sometimes I'm envious of the people that were able to hit rock bottom, because when you're at rock bottom, there's no more risk. Nothing you do is going to make your situation worse because you're at rock bottom. I think that I was at a place that was I don't know if I'd say as bad as rock bottom or worse than rock bottom. It was called getting by, just getting by. I was just getting by physically, emotionally, mentally. I won't say that I was living, paycheck to paycheck, but probably one big financial catastrophe away from losing a lot. And I think a lot of us are in that situation where you start finding yourself saying the phrase, if only. You start looking towards circumstances that if only this would happen, I could change my life around. If only, there's the biggie, if only I won the lottery, I could do this or that or the other thing. But I had some simple if onlys. If only I could get a good night of sleep, this would turn around. If I could just get this credit card paid off, then I could start to put more money away in savings. If only I had a better boss. Or you start looking at certain contingent things, like once the kids get older and they move out, and then I'll have more time to do this. My whole life had sort of become this sort of contingent waiting for something to happen that would allow me to then change my life. And it didn't. Simultaneously, because I wasn't at rock bottom, I was basically living in fear. What if I do something, I screw something up? I can't start a business on my own. I can't start up a YouTube channel and website and think that I could, maybe make some money off of that. So I was living cautiously. I had a long period of not treating my body very well, and I will talk about that in one of the subsequent videos. But when your body is in a bad shape physically, you're going to be in a bad shape, I think, emotionally and maybe even spiritually. And that makes dealing with all of life's events, the various curveballs that life can throw at you, all the more difficult. And 2018 was that year for me. I had worked for GE off and on for almost 20 years and had been at a place in 2017, 2016, 2017, where I was really, really loving what I was doing. I was leading some very big training initiatives within the company, and I was teaching, I was doing my thing and really enjoying it. But then there was a leadership shift in the company, and as a result, priorities changed, training budgets got slashed, and I got reassigned to a series of managers that were among the worst bosses I've ever had in my life, doing stuff that I really didn't enjoy, financial projects that were the equivalent of looking for nickels and dimes between seat cushions. And pretty much the whole string of management that I worked for were very much kiss up and kick down. And it was incredibly stressful. I was essentially on the clock 24/7. I would get a call after dinner from my boss telling me that she expected me to be on a call with Korea at 10:30 at night. That very night I was notified. Things like that. It became extraordinarily stressful for me at work, compounded by the fact that, I wasn't in great physical shape as well. I found that just sitting at my desk at work, I would look at my heart rate and I would be over 130 beats per minute just reading email. And I think that was a combination of anxiety and health. And then 2 months before what would have been my 20th year service anniversary, I got an email. It was a meeting request that was basically me, my boss, and the human resources manager. And there was no description in the body of the meeting. Whenever you see one of those emails, get out a memory stick really fast and start backing up your laptop, because it's not going to be good. So there I was, 2 months shy of my 20th anniversary, and I was told that the company was going to be laying me off. And it wasn't the first time I'd been laid off. I was sort of, I'm not going to say okay with it because it stings, but I'd been through it once before, and, given the way that GE was going and the way that I felt about management, it wasn't the worst possible thing in the world to have happen. One of the things that then happened that started to really affect me, in order to collect my sort of equivalent of a severance from GE, they don't call it a severance anymore. It's called like unemployment assistance or something like that. Basically, I had to apply for unemployment and go through that process on a weekly basis. And that started to affect me mentally. It started to kind of affect my self-worth. And I started to really sort of feel more and more depressed. I started working with my doctor to try and find some anti-anxiety and anti-depression medications that would work for me. And we found that nothing really seemed to do the trick. And that made things worse. It started feeling increasingly hopeless. And if I can't cure it with a pill, I must be pretty bad. Then over the course of a couple of days, I got hit with a pretty decent whammy of life events. My daughter had complications due to a tonsillectomy and wound up spending 3 days in the hospital. And because of my very crappy insurance with GE, it wound up costing me around $8,000 out of pocket. The morning after my daughter had been admitted into the hospital, our car got broken into in our driveway. Someone smashed out the window. I don't know what they were looking for, if they were looking for prescription medication, if they were looking for a concealed carry handgun or a purse or whatever. Nothing was taken from the inside of the vehicle, but the window was smashed, and this was like in March, February, so just bitterly, bitterly, bitterly cold here in Wisconsin. Later that afternoon, the doorbell rings. A guy holding a blue envelope hands it to me and lets me know, "You've been served." My wife had been in a car accident on a snowy night 3 years earlier, and now we were getting sued for it. So, not a great day. And I came back to then the if only. If only I can make it through this. So I took some money out of my 401k and used it to pay the medical bills, and things started feeling like they were stabilizing a little bit for me. I had started my own training and consulting company. I was a big trainer at GE, probably one of the lead trainers corporate-wide for training in process excellence. So things like Lean, Six Sigma, change management, effective teams, negotiation skills, things of that nature. And I thought, wow, there should be a big audience out there for me and my training. So I started setting up a company, going through the expenses of that, was starting to feel good about that, had a couple of big clients lined up that probably would have paid the bills for me, just those 2 clients. And it looked like I was starting to turn the corner. And then the day after my son graduated from high school, he was kind of following me around, kind of like a lost puppy. And eventually he took a deep breath and said, "Dad, there's something I've got to tell you." Similar to the meeting request with HR, when your son or daughter comes in and says, "Dad" or "Mom, I've got something I've got to tell you," brace yourself. Because my 17-year-old son told me that he was going to be a dad. And I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to hear that. I wasn't ready to be a grandpa. I probably looked an awful lot like a grandpa, back in 2018 versus now, but I was not ready. And this became another thing, which was, if only we can figure out a way through this. If only, we can go the adoption route or something. I I was drowning in trying to figure out what to do. What does the universe or God want from me here, that this just keeps coming at me? And then both of my two biggest clients dried up on me. I suspect that one actually took my training material and started teaching it themselves internally, and the other one was a hospital system, and they took a shift in direction and decided that they were more interested in putting their money towards software rather than quality and performance excellence. So here I was, as we started to roll into autumn, in a very financially uncertain position, knowing that I was going to have to start pulling money out of my retirement just to pay the mortgage. Uncertain about whether I was going to be a grandpa or not be a grandpa. Uncertain about how this lawsuit was going to play out, and would that just completely destroy me? Uncertain about my business, and pretty much in the worst health of my life. And Thanksgiving rolled around, and I'm in charge of the food, naturally, and I put a ton of effort into this meal that I felt went not as appreciated as I'd hoped by the 18 people that I fed that day. And the next morning, I was exhausted. My house looked like a crime scene. And Thanksgiving weekend is the anniversary of my dad's death. And he was only 4 years older than I am right now when he died of cancer. He was an alcoholic. He smoked. He treated his body poorly. He was an angry and violent man. And I think that all of those things created this toxic environment within his body that allowed disease to happen. And as I looked at myself, I realized I had become a lot of that too. I wasn't smoking, but I was drinking a lot. I was 230 pounds. I was on 2 doses of lisinopril and 1 dose of amlodipine per day, and my blood pressure was still 145/95. My knees hurt. My back hurt. My back hurt so much that 5 minutes of dicing vegetables at the cutting board, and I would have to go and roll it out on a foam roller. My knees hurt so bad going upstairs. It was just crunchy. It sounded like I was stepping on Rice Krispies. I would work up a sweat washing dishes. I was in bad shape physically, and on top of all of this emotional stuff. And I was to the point where I wouldn't say necessarily that I was suicidal, but when I would pray at night, and I pray every night, I would say to God, you know what, if tonight's the night you decide you want to take me, I'm okay with that. I feel I've had a good run. So if you want to take me and relieve this burden, I'm okay with that. And it was at some point that weekend when I heard the song Walk by the Foo Fighters. And I don't know exactly what that song's about, but there's some lyrics in there. I'm ready to walk again. I believe I've waited long enough. Where do I begin? And I heard that. And I just wept. because I was ready to walk again. I was ready to fix things. I was ready to straighten out my life. I was ready to be the husband and father and grandfather that I should be. And that's how it started. We'll talk more about this in the next video. Thanks for watching.